The Level, which started on Friday night, an odd night to start a crime drama. This starred Carla Crome as a sort of quite a young detective who early on wins a medal for bravery in the field. She, as we learn early on, is sort of living a double life. On one hand, she's this really sort of well-respected copper, and on the other hand, she's got a relationship with Philip Glenister's. What's his name now? He's got an odd name.
Lasso.
Lasso.
Because it's the same as a football, as I remembered.
Yes. Lasso, who's this sort of dodgy haulage company owner. Basically, her job has been, over the years, anytime his name pops up as part of an investigation, she makes sure it disappears. So she goes to meet him just as she's getting hot and heavy with a colleague. She goes to meet him in the middle of nowhere, and he says, "I've got a problem," and then gets shot and killed, which is like a big shock because you thought, oh, Philip Glenister's going to be a big part of this series, and basically he gets shot, killed. I think that we might see some flashbacks in future episodes.
Well, that's what I thought, that this is time for flashbacks.
And she also, in the sort of running away, she gets shot as well and ends up with this bullet wound, which she's trying to treat during the rest of the episode. She then gets sent to, is it Brighton?
Yeah.
Can I just say, I love Matt's reviews, because if you haven't seen it, you don't need to. He goes through it scene by scene.
Well,
and
this is all like relevant, I think. She goes to Brighton, where her family's from. Oddly, Gary Lewis playing her dad here, and because she grew up with Lasso's daughter, and you see her then joining the police force led by Carol Jackson. Also, Noel Clarke, who's her partner while she's down there, never quite trusts her because she's from like the serious crime squad or the fraud squad, and he's always slightly having a dig at her for no apparent reason. And they are now investigating why Lasso was killed, what he's tied up in. There is also this woman who's had like his illegitimate child, or she thinks he's had his illegitimate child, who also gets killed in the first episode. I quite enjoyed this. I thought Carla Crone was very good in the lead role, very compelling. I like the story where she's sort of between these two worlds. I quite liked Lindsay Coulson as the boss.
I thought some of this was very brave. Unlike some other dramas that are on at the moment, there was no need to have a backstory. It didn't explain everything. Things just happened. You know, she met with Philip Glenister. You had no idea what the relationship was.
I think you did to an extent. They said like he was her father figure, more of a father than Gary Lewis was to her.
Sure, but there was no real explanation of what the link was, what he did at that time. That was all drawn out in the sort of investigation room.
I know what you mean. When they met, you didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, you went along as the viewer with the actual kind of plot as it happens. You didn't need the flashbacks at the beginning. You didn't need the commentary over the top telling you, oh, he was my father figure. You got it as it happened, and then it was explained when you got to
it was sort of the don't tell us, show us, and that's what they did.
Absolutely,
they showed you and told you.
I don't really like the main actress, if I'm honest.
Really?
I kind of struggled with it, and she was quite dull and quite lifeless, and I don't know whether that's just because she was playing that part of someone walking around with a bullet wound.
I think so.
So yeah, but I didn't really warm to it.
This is what I think. I think it's better than Paranoid by a country mile.
Okay.
I think Carla Crome is interesting, but I just don't know if I'm invested in it enough to see the rest of it.
I have to say, I enjoyed it in terms of it being, it's not Line of Duty, it's not on that level of quality, but it's a good sort of escapist, it's a good sort of middle of the road crime drama.
I'm going to actually use a Gary phrase, that there is so... And no, because I think it rings true in this instance. There's so much other good stuff on at the moment. If this was on in the summer, then I could perhaps give it a bit more.
If this had been on instead of Brief Encounters.
Exactly. I could have perhaps enjoyed it a bit more. But there's just so much other... There's almost too much good stuff on at the moment.
It's fighting for room in a very crowded market. I can understand that. And there was a lot of dodgy performances. Noel Clarke, who I've never rated as an actor.
I've never liked him.
I really like Noel Clarke, but I have to admit, all you got to see him was doing his shifty-looking eye look at the woman.
Like
That's it.
him in this. I didn't like him in Chasing Shadows. I think you like him because of the Doctor Who connection. Let's be honest.
Well, no, not only that, but I also like adulthood and kidult and the stuff he's done for films.
I certainly don't believe him as a police officer. If that makes sense. He was a police officer in Chasing Shadows, and in this. And I don't believe him as a police officer.
Chasing Shadows, God. I mean, it's not Chasing Shadows, the level, is it? But it's just...
What would you say, Chasing Shadows and Paranoid? Which was the worst?
Oh, dear. Oh, now you're making...
Chasing Shadows was worse.
Because of Reece Shearsmith.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm like Luke. I agree. I will watch this, but probably not. Maybe for a couple. I might not watch this for a couple of weeks.
Sorry, Gary. Paranoid or The Level? Which would you stick with, one or the other, if you had a choice?
Well, he does.
Which you have. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
If you were saying to me, what will I watch next week? If I had to watch one of them,
if you were going to drop one and just stick with one,
I would stick with The Level because I think it is, you say, better written. Better characters. The plots maybe for me are a bit of a wash, but
to me it showed enough promise to continue and see what they're going to do with it next.